Alright, welcome back to the LS Swap in my garage. If you are new to this series, I'm basically taking my 73 Camaro, I've ripped the engine and transmission out, and I've got an LS1 here, a 4L60E, and I'm gonna kind of put it all together and put it in. And here's the kicker, I've never done this before, I'm new to this. I'm doing my best to give you guys an idea of how this is done without being a straight up tutorial, but I simultaneously want to show you guys the effort and work that it takes to put one of these into one of these. Now, this is the second episode. If you watched the first episode, things have changed dramatically since the last time I saw you guys. For instance, I've got everything I need now, which we're gonna go over. Now I'm gonna do my best to go over everything in this video. Talk about the engine, the mounts, getting the engine ready for the swap, putting the engine in, etc. And we're gonna go over that in just a second. But before we transition to that, I wanna say thank you to today's sponsor. Hey, did you like how fast that transition was? Super smooth. First of all, big ups and thanks to Viking War of Clans for continuing to sponsor and support this channel. Y'all know I like Viking War Clans. I've been playing it for a hot minute. They continue to give me money to talk about how good their game is. It's like a win-win. But here's the cool thing. Viking War Clans was actually inspired by like the 90s and early 2000s strategy games. Y'all know I'm a big StarCraft nerd, and that's why this game is right up my alley. Something you young zerglings know nothing about. Today's games are all about shooting, running fast, and hiding, and that's it. And that's why Vikings is so cool, is because it gives you that deep strategic feel that a game should. So if you're looking for a game that combines strategy, team play, and where time invested will pay off with victories, then this is the game for you. It's got an excellent style. It's packed with excellent 3D visuals and gorgeous presentation, and it's got a fully immersing soundtrack. You're immediately transported back to Viking times. You'll build your own town, search the area for resources, and build your own army. And another thing that I really love about the game is that it's not a real-time shooter where you blink and bam, you're dead for the rest of the match. I can play for 5 minutes or even for 5 hours and then set it down and pick it up whenever I feel like it. And you can also choose your own game style. Some players are explorers, focusing on building mighty cities, researching technologies, and discovering mythical worlds. Some are achievers. They'll focus on expansion in the empire. But me personally, I'm more of a conqueror. I'm a warlord and I like to cut down anybody in my way. But hey, that's just me. I personally enjoy the strategic part of the game, but help support my channel. Download Vikings for free, only from my link, nobody else, and you'll get a special bonus of 200 gold coins and a protective shield. Then don't forget to look me up and join under my clan, the Dingleberries. See you on the battlefield. I have things to do. Thank you. Appreciate you for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about everything that's going in the car. So obviously here I have an LS1. This is out of a 2001 Trans Am. I believe a 2001 might be like a 99. I've got a 4L60E transmission that I'm putting in this car for right now. I've had a lot of people ask me about the engine and transmission setup that I'm gonna be running in this. My goal is not numbers oriented. The problem is that people want to focus on numbers. It's not a fun car unless it has 5, 6, 700, 800, 1,000 horsepower, and that's ridiculous. I don't believe in any of that crap. The only thing I really care about this build is it being A, reliable, and B, fun. I really have no intentions of making this thing over a 400, 450 horsepower car. If I get there, cool. If not, no big deal. The point is I'm gonna set myself up to where if I wanna go beyond that, I totally can. But for right now, I'm basically just gonna run a stock engine until it's time to paint. Then when it's time to paint, I'll pull the engine back out, obviously because I gotta paint the subframe and whatnot. And then I'll modify the engine, do my cam, and any other engine work I wanna do then. So behind me I have my transmission, which is a 4L60E. Now I know you guys are gonna say like, Dan, a 4L60E isn't really good for that much more than stock horsepower. Apparently the 4L60E is not the strongest transmission in the world, and that's fine. Currently I'm having monster transmissions. They're building me a 600 plus horsepower capable transmission, a 4L60E. This is basically just a placeholder while it's under stock power. When it's done, I'm gonna send them the transmission and say thank you for hooking up a transmission. But here's the kicker, here's what I haven't told you guys yet. I've partnered up with Holley Performance on this build, along with Detroit Speed, Gear FX, Monster Transmission. I have a really good team helping me out on this build so I can show you guys the appropriate steps to take. Hopefully show you what parts you need, how to do it, etc. without it being like a full-blown in-your-face boring tutorial. Does that make sense? Bang bang. And it's really humbling to be partnered with these kind of people, because this is kind of stuff that I grew up dreaming about. Both my partners and my community who believe in me to get this done and show you guys how it's done. The most important thing is, remember, it's just nuts and bolts. I mean, there's wires and stuff too, but you know, we'll call it geeks for that one. That being said, I have a lot of parts to show you guys and what's going into this car. Now, before I show you all the stuff, let's talk about steps. What's the first step? I've got the engine out, I've got a new engine in. It should just drop right in, right? Wrong. There's a little bit of stuff we have to change. Engine mounts, transmission crossmember mounts. What about wiring? When we do wiring, there's a lot that goes into it. So the first things first that we gotta do is get this engine ready to go into the car. So before we get this engine ready for the swap, let's see what they sent us over so we can kind of get an idea where to start. Holley sent out these really nice fender covers, the sticker bomb fender covers. Since I don't have my fenders on the car, I don't really need those right now, but those will come in super handy when I go to put everything back together. This is a huge one. We'll go over this one specifically in just a little bit when it comes time to do this. This is the Terminator X fuel injection system. I'm gonna be the worst one to explain this, but essentially this ECU is more or less plug and play, and it kind of learns itself. This is gonna take a lot of time. There's a lot of instructions, and I'm gonna do my best to cover all of this. But we have the Terminator X system. It's flat out the absolute best you can get. This is the primo. We also have the MSD accessories kit. From what I understand, this is basically just an accessories pack off your battery that you can run an activation wire off of. So you can run things like radio and anything else off of your ignition cable. That way you're not having to kill a battery. They sent out 2 of these so we can have all the accessories that we want. They've got an oil dipstick made for the LS swap. That's this right here. Got your header hookups here. These are gonna be for your exhaust. Alternator pigtail for the wiring harness. Intake sensors. Fuel rail kit. This is absolutely awesome. This is the MSD Atomic Fuel Rail Kit, perfectly with the Atomic Airforce intake manifold. We also have the MSD Atomic Airforce intake. We also have a MSD 90mm throttle body. I believe it's a 90mm, I have to double check. Your retrofit oil pan. This is also another very important thing if you're gonna be doing LS swaps in previous gen cars. This is basically gonna fit around all the Crossmembers and stuff like that flawlessly. We don't have to worry about any of that. We got some transducers. I don't really know what these do, but I'll learn about them. And then another big important part is your transmission Crossmember. 1970 to 1881 F body LS swap auto trans. So for all 60, 65, 70, and 75. Again, all these parts will be in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. And it doesn't stop there. We also have the Hooker BlackHeart header kit. So these are going to fit perfectly around the subframe, which is, you will have to do different headers specifically for these cars. Transmission, obviously. And another big one is this Frontline drive accessory kit. This is basically going to replace everything that the front of your engine rolls on. Basically, the relocation kit changes where everything sits on the front end of the engine because your alternator hits, I believe your air compressor hits. There's a couple other small things that hit the bottom of the subframe. We'll cover all those in a little bit too, but that replaces all that. This is imperative. This is super important. And to go with the headers, we have the full Hooker BlackHeart exhaust. This is gonna go all the way back, designed specifically for this car, gonna sound mint. And we also have a EFI gas tank ready to go. This gas tank should already be set up with the fuel pumper and sending unit for the EFI. Just pops right in. It's a brand new gas tank with the fuel pump and sending unit already installed. So that'll go in today as well, hopefully. I also have a Frostbite radiator specifically designed for the LS swap, as well as this Shroud kit. This is gonna support 2 big fans. It's gonna help cooling. And all of this will be controllable with the standalone ECU that we got as well, the Terminator X system. And that is where we're starting. We have a lot of stuff, and I know I'm missing a handful of small stuff that I haven't mentioned. So let's get this motor in the air, put it on the engine stand, and get it ready to put in the actual car itself. This is gonna take, I think, most of the time. Engine is on the stand, and it's time to prep. First things first, I wanna go ahead and drain the oil out of this thing. I think that'll be the best thing to do first. Coolant should obviously be nice and drained out too, but it wouldn't surprise me even in the least if coolant came out of it, just because it's hard to get coolant out of everything. We shouldn't have any fluids in here, but you never know. I've got everything mounted up to where the transmission hooks up. Should be totally fine, seems plenty strong. Totally normal for the engine to sag downwards a little bit. It's a lot of weight. So let's drain the oil, if there is any. with the oil pan. We need to go ahead and get the oil pan ready. The really cool thing about Holley Performance parts, the stuff that I'm gonna be using on basically everything, they have excellent instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you ever get stuck or lost on stuff, there's YouTube videos, there's written instructions, I mean, there's tons of stuff. So first we're gonna go ahead and remove the factory oil pan. We'll follow the instructions. Removal, drain oil, remove oil filter, gotta do that next. Look, I've made this a topside oil filter. Wipe this down to see what our seal looks like. We'll clean this up here in a little bit and get a new gasket in it. We're gonna need some RTV as well. Before we can put our new pan and whatnot on, we have this little oil pickup here, the little screen and pickup. We're just gonna take this off, and we got a new one we gotta put in. I mean, it's a little grimy, but I'm not seeing any like metal shavings. I can see for the cam, they look okay. They don't look worn. There's no redges. Not bad. There we go. O-ring as well. This is our new oil pickup and screen. Since we have a different oil pan, the oil pickup and screen is a little bit different too. So Holley has this one that kind of just moves it over one bracket like that. Now they say in the instructions here that this part may have to be modified a little bit, just the mounting position, just because of where the oil pan pickup is relocated to. This might need to be ground down a little bit, but this should be a pretty simple mod if we have to just ground it on the ends. Go ahead and put this bad boy back on. Yeah, that's just gonna be required to be trimmed up a little bit. I'm just gonna take this to my my angle grinder, or actually I might just do it to my bench grinder. All right, would you look at that? Looks pretty damn close. Got the new O-ring, put that on, just lubricate a little bit. Alright, pickup tube is on and torqued to the specs. Rotate the engine to make sure that there's no clearance issues. Looks like everything's gonna clear. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the goop along the edge of the pan here. A chisel without pushing too hard. A razor blade would also work just as well. Just do your best to keep all the goop and gunk from going into the engine. For the most part, if it does, it's not a big deal, but try your best not to. And whatever you do, for the love of God, do not sand this. That's nice and clean. If you really wanted to, you could probably reuse the factory gasket. There's no reason that you really shouldn't. It's just kind of bad practice, you know? When you do this stuff, you might as well go with a new gasket. I'm not gonna tell you otherwise, but neither I nor Holley suggests that you do that. So, got a placement gasket here for the factory pan. If you really want to reuse it, you can just drill out the rivets. There's two little rivets on the pan. Drill them out, and then you can pull that one off. Otherwise, I would suggest sticking with a new gasket. And now we have to install a baffle. This is a baffle in your oil pan. Just kind of drop it in there. Just a little bit of Loctite. We'll do 10 pounds on these. Wipe down to make sure everything's gonna be good to go. I just usually use rubbing alcohol when it comes to doing any sort of cleaning, just because it evaporates fast and doesn't really leave any residue. And that should go like so. The gasket is actually designed to hold the bolts in place, like little O-rings around where they go in. We'll hold these little bolts in place. So install these, and then I'll do the rest when I get it on. Before we put the oil pan back on, instructions from Holley say to apply a little bit of RTV here, 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 and here. So we've got 4 corners. This is just gonna make sure that the pan gets nice and sealed. Don't need a lot, just make sure it's nice and full. This is oil resistant Permatex. that into 18 foot-pounds. Alright, oil pan is on. I mean, I didn't check the instructions. It takes a different oil filter, so I got the same oil filter for like what I would normally get for an LS1. That was dumb. So I gotta go get an oil filter here in a little bit. But while I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and take off my headers and, my exhaust manifold. The engine mounts from the Trans Am that this was pulled from, this is all still attached. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them off. And now I'm gonna go ahead and take off the factory headers too, because we got aftermarket ones for those. Might as well take those off too. I think next what I'll do is I'll go ahead and tackle the intake manifold, get rid of this stock LS manifold, which, you know, I always look at like the original OEM LS manifold as kind of like a way to identify the engine. You know, you look at that manifold and the valve covers, you know, and you're like, that's an LS, right? You look at that and you're like, man, that's an LS. But we're gonna get rid of this, throw on the MSD intake manifold, and also do the injectors and little other odds and ends. So let's get the instructions. There's really no point in me going over every step to remove everything. I'm just kind of doing it as I come across, and there's nothing you guys couldn't find a tutorial about online. So just continue to remove. Oh man, that is gross. That is just freaking nasty. All right, before we go any further, I'm just gonna shove a bunch of towels in here to keep anything from seeping in or any like sort of debris. Like, last thing I want, one of my sockets to fall in there. So now we have to install your map sensor. There's a couple of places on the MSD atomic air intake that you can basically put your map sensor in. They say to go with that's closest to your OEM application, which mine is on the back of my intake. I'm going to drill out this hole. The other two have not been drilled out either, but using an 1/8 of an inch drill bit, drill a hole, install it, cinch it down, it's good to go. And you can disassemble it so that way you can vacuum out any sort of chips that'll get in there. You don't want any plastic chips inside of your intake. If you have plastic chips in your intake, you're gonna have a bad time. All right, now we gotta follow torquing instructions. Completely torqued down, everything's nice and tight. Now, it is time for the fuel rails. Let's see what we got here. Our fuel rails themselves. different brackets for different engines. We need the LS1 brackets. 2702, 27023, and 27024. We'll lubricate the O-ring. Yeah. So yesterday I ran into just a quick little thing I wasn't sure of with the injectors, and that's my clips. My clips don't seem to want to like work on these. Aftermarket clips you can buy, so I reached out to my boys over at Holley, kind of gave them a quick question. I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, you know, my clips don't work. They said it's a common question, and I shouldn't need the clips at all, despite what the instructions say. So I ordered the clips anyway before I got their response, just in case. But he said just make sure you grease up the O-ring nice and good, and you shouldn't have an issue. I think I did get my brackets wrong though. I think I used the wrong brackets for mine. I think the OEM injectors are supposed to use the shorter brackets, so I'm gonna test fit those because the tall ones don't seem to like let the injectors sit fully all the way in, and I'm afraid that it'll squirt fuel all over my engine and blow it up. Also, when putting your injectors in, it's way easier to kind of like push and twist them back and forth a little bit, and it'll kind of, these things are in there nice and strong. These aren't popping out ever. Oh yeah, that fits way better. I trust that much more. I think before I do the hose, I'm gonna install the throttle body, which is around here somewhere. All right, so we have the original throttle body, which we still have our throttle positioning sensors. Whew. Try to do that with just a screwdriver. Sensor number 1, and then the throttle body sensor here. Okay, we'll install the throttle position sensor. That'll just go on like so. Fits perfectly in place. TPS is on, and you have your idle air sensor. I don't think that there's a specific way it goes into this one. Probably just a little bit of fresh oil around the O-ring. That's always good practice. Okay, that's what I was worried about. Those screws won't fit, but they send out new ones in the kit for your idle air sensor. Just going like that. So I've got my IAC, or my idle air controller, or my TPS, my throttle position sensor, ready to go onto the intake manifold. Throttle body comes with this little red gasket, which I'm assuming is for my intake manifold and throttle body to mount up to. Now I'm installing the port seals, little rubber grommets, not grommets, but they're not even gaskets. I mean, they're just seals that go around and keep you from having intake leaks and stuff like that. So we're just gonna pop them in there best we can. You cannot put these in wrong. They make it pretty obvious if you try to. They really mount in there nice and comfortable. I see this little rubber tab here at the end. It's only on one corner of every seal, and there's a little tab exactly how you're supposed to put it in. It will not let you put it in wrong. All right, now we're ready to put this on the engine. Before I get installed, I have to remove these vent lines. Apparently, they will not work with the new manifold. You can plug these back ones here. Front ones still need to connect. I think I can take them out and still put the intake on, and then I can just do that tomorrow when the new pieces arrive, so we'll give that a shot. I've got a new one on the way that'll connect these two. You can just block these off. But if I find myself in a position where I can start this thing today, I'll just probably cut these off and JB weld them. These would act as plugs as well. I'm gonna carefully remove my covers. Everything is torqued to spec. I pulled off the water pump because the instructions said that I might need to. It looked like it was fine, but I wasn't sure, so I pulled it off anyway. Still have some hoses I gotta connect and stuff like that. I gotta figure out some things. I believe this goes here. Obviously, I still gotta do all my piping on my hoses. The intake manifold is on. Looking good too, I like that. There's only like 1 or 2 small things that I need to do now. I say small. Put the engine mounts on, which I'm gonna probably do last. I've got the front drive accessory kit, messes with all of this. So I think next I'm gonna focus on the front drive kit. Let's go ahead and take everything out to get an idea of what we're looking at here. This might be my water pump actually. AC, it looks like maybe. Just block off bolts. Instructions for the drive kit. All right, I didn't even know they were sending a water pump. Got a brand new nice alternator. That's awesome. Water pump drive, power steering lines, water pump stuff, hardware. Yo, no way. Brand new AC compressor too. Freaking beautiful. This engine's gonna look really nice. Oh, nice, a new power steering pump. No wonder why this kit is so much money though. This is like a $1,500 kit, I believe, somewhere around there. Nice. I'm glad I got this because the one I've got now is pretty shot. First things first, let's start with the instructions. I'm assuming I can pull off everything. So circling back on why this kit is important for these engines, especially when doing a swap, the way everything's set up now, where your AC is, your alternator, power steering pump, will hit the subframe where when you go to drop the engine in. Obviously we don't want that because it's a different subframe than what this engine was out of. You need to basically relocate everything. This is a package thing you can get. This package has everything. I guess let's start by taking everything off. Now I'm sure some of you guys are wondering why I wore safety goggles to do that. And the answer is very simple. I don't know if you guys can see around the face of this here. You'll see where it's been chipped off in several different areas. That's because the first time I tried to pull this, it straight up just cracked this and almost hit me in the eye. I'm glad I didn't have to learn it the hard lesson the second time. Our old harmonic balancer's off. Right now, we need to install the new harmonic balancer, which should go in just like so. But we don't want to just put it on all willy-nilly just yet. We gotta lube it up. We'll get some grease in it real quick. So I did have to wait on one part, or a tool actually, to install this. There's basically a big bolt that goes in here, you tighten down, it presses the new wheel on. They're press-on harmonic balancers, which is some pretty intense stuff. So the issue is you gotta try to install one of these, you put it over here like that, and you wanna just use your bolt to torque it down and press it on, but there's no threads, it won't reach. So get something like this, they order them online, they're like 10 bucks, 5 bucks. It's basically just a big threaded bolt. You stick it in here and you're gonna get it started. This one came with a couple washers, different sizes to help you press on the whole thing. So if your housing's bigger than that, you just use that. It's nice and seated, won't turn that anymore. You're gonna push this thing on. You're gonna put on the big washer, it looks like. I don't have a long enough socket, so I'm just gonna add a couple extra washers to use my shallow end. Look at that. All right. They want you to use the original bolt first to torque this thing down to like 240, I believe maybe it's 260? 240 foot-pounds, which is gonna require a pretty gnarly torque wrench, but thankfully I have one. The reason why they want you to use your OEM bolt is because otherwise you'll damage your new one. The big cheater bar is gonna help with this too. Now we're gonna set our bad boy to 240 foot-pounds. I don't know how hard this is gonna be, but oh my god, I'm about to pop a nut. That's crazy. Yes! I got it! It's 240 foot-pounds. Holy crap. That took a lot of effort on a rolling thing. Whew. Now I gotta take it back off. So the harmonic balancer has been pressed on to 240 foot-pounds. Pull out the old bolt, got the new one. Install this bad boy, hand tight, and then we're gonna torque it to 60 foot-pounds or 59 foot-pounds. Okay, we're at 59 foot-pounds. Now it's wanting me to do some sort of degree mark with the tape where 125 degrees of clockwise rotation would be from where the 59 foot-pounds was obtained. So I have to rotate the whole assembly 125 degrees. Right now I've got it straight up and down. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna look at a photo of 125 degrees. Rather than get my protractor out, I'm gonna guesstimate where I think about 125 degrees is according to their steps. About here. Okay, that's good. Cool. Alright, so now we got our thermostat and heater hose adapter. Oh, you just kind of loop them in together like so, it looks like. Okay, and we're just gonna kind of pop that right there. Now over here on this side we have your heater core outlets. 3/4 hose barb, 5/8 hose barb, I believe. And then there's 2 spots on the bottom I'm pretty sure we have to plug. But these 2 are gonna run to our heater core. And then just plug the bottom ones. I believe the bottom ones are just for certain applications. Depending on your application, there might be cross members in the way or your suspension's in the way or something like that. So that's why they have 4 ports. You can kind of pick and choose whatever fits your application best. And I guess kind of like while I'm thinking about it and still have room, I should install this vent line. If it's any more convoluted in here. Alright, so this is the thing I just installed. And then that is our little belt tensioner. And now it's time for the belt. Go here. And then it goes underneath here. It's got a little slot for the breaker bar in there. Just tilt her downwards. Slip that bad boy on like so. Make sure the belt lines are in all the right places. This should be good to go. We also have this little tensioner cover. And there you go, we got a fully ready to go engine essentially. This monstrosity over here. While I'm thinking about it, let's put some fresh boy plugs in there. I also have to put my new dipstick in. Think with their dipstick, Jimmy. I believe this is an LS3 dipstick. Pop that thing down in there. All right, so now it's time to do the part that I'm extremely excited to do, which is the engine mounts. Holley got us some hooker engine mounts that go with their BlackHeart swap kit. It's got transmission crossmember, the engine mounts, the exhaust manifolds that fit specifically for your engine, etc., etc. And now it's time to put on these engine mounts. And they're pretty simple. Looks like they just bolt on here like so. You line them and then they drop right in on your factory clamshells. Now, if you don't have clamshell mounts, if you're pre-73, so 72 and lower, you have to drill out your subframe a little bit. Where they at? It comes with this little template here so you can do clam mounts. It makes it super easy. Don't be afraid of this. Thankfully, I got a 73 and it's just one less step I have to do, but this is simple. You just put it on, align it, and then that's that. The only problem is that it doesn't seem to tell you which one's which, but I don't think it'll let you mount them up wrong. I don't think it'll let you do the wrong one. I think that's it. I really do. I don't know, but I think that's it. All right. And before we put the engine in, we got to put in the transmission crossmember. I mean, I could hook the engine in, but then I'd have to pull it right back out anyway, put the transmission in. So I'm just gonna bolt the transmission to the engine and then drop it in as one unit like I pulled it out. So I gotta take out this old crossmember. Old crossmember out. I think that's the way it's supposed to go. I can't find any pictures for reference, so that's the way I'm gonna do it. How about that? All right, so I did just notice that there's a sign on the transmission that says no fluid and no filter. So I'll need to get a transmission filter for it. All it takes is automatic transmission fluid. I don't know if the torque converter is full or not. I think it does have some fluid in it. It's pretty heavy, but I don't trust it. I don't want to put it together with only 6 quarts of fluid versus like, I think it needs like 12 or 13 or something like that. Off camera, I don't know why I did it off camera, but I did. And I went ahead and topped this thing off. Feels full. Like, this is plenty heavy. I rolled it around. There's surprisingly not a lot of info on torque converters online. I don't know much about them, but from what I understand, there's people who fill them up and there's people who don't, and everybody who fills them up says that you have to fill them up, and everybody who doesn't fill them up says you don't have to fill them up. I was just safe and made sure it had fluid in it. You can't overfill it. Just fill it up until it'll naturally pour out on its side. So that's what I did. If I tip it over on its side, it'll start to drip out. So I'm gonna call this good and get ready to put it back in the transmission. After I change the transmission filter and get it all sealed and filled up and whatnot, then I'll worry about that. But I have an idea that was recommended to me by a friend. I don't know if it's a good one or not, but we'll find out. This is probably still gonna get fluid everywhere though. Got a new gasket and transmission filter. Figured might as well replace it while we're here. Those liars. All right, now it is time to bolt up the transmission to the engine. I haven't filled the transmission yet. I'm gonna do that after I get it on the engine. But with this bell housing, it doesn't have this nice little cutout on the bottom like some of them do, which means it's gonna be kind of annoying to butt the transmission up to the engine. A lot of people will remove the starter, which is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drop the starter. That should give me enough hand room to get into here and be able to bolt the flex plate up to the torque converter. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the starter. I don't know if you can tell, but got the torque converter and clutch plate. I'm trying to get the torque converter and the flex plate all lined up, and I think I'm good. I'm just gonna get one started in there and then continue to rotate the engine by hand, and then rotate it all the way, then nut it up. And then now we gotta torque these to 40 foot-pounds. If you get it, here's a tip. If you try to torque it down here, you can't get a socket on it, but if you let it go basically to the top, woo! All right. Engine and transmissions together. Here it is. It is time to put the engine and transmission into the subframe. And I am extremely excited and nervous. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. I've got faith in myself. And the straps. I got faith in the straps. It's all about faith in the straps. Whew. Got it pretty lined up the best I can. I'm gonna go slow. Oh, come on, baby. Come on, baby. Oh, you're kidding me. Come on. Yes. Yes. This hole's lined up. First try. First try. Right through, perfect. Easy, 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 easy. Yes! It's in! It's in! I feel like McLovin in Superbad because I got it in. Yes! Dude, yes! Oh my god, it's an LS swap! Oh my god. It's in. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yo, I don't even know what to think right now. I'm all over the place. The majority of the work is done. There's still a lot left, but I think that I'm about halfway. Oh my god. Okay, this is an excellent place to end today's video. For several reasons, because there's going to be a lot of like wiring and nutting up. Like I basically just showed you the physical aspect of it, like putting the engine in and the transmission in. We still got to do drive shaft. I do have a rear axle being built right now, but that'll be a ways down the line. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of cruise around on the 10 bolt that I have now and not romp on it too hard, and hopefully I just won't shred the gears. From what I understand, the wiring should be relatively easy with that I got a Holley Terminator X system I mentioned at the beginning of this video. That is, I watched a couple clips on it, looks pretty easy to set up, or maybe it's not as intense as I thought. And then we still gotta fill it full of oil and transmission fluid, which will be easy while it's in the subframe, and that'll all be in the next video. Let's see, how much time do I have invested into this? Taking it apart was about 7 hours worth of work. 6.5, 7 hours worth of work, taking everything apart and dropping it and getting the engine out and transmission out and whatnot. Yeah, about 7 hours, 6.5, 7 hours. Then I have maybe about 10 hours into assembling the engine and maybe like another hour into mounting the transmission to the engine and then dropping it in the frame. So just under 20 hours, probably just under 20 hours invested in this entire project so far of labor hours. But before I end this video, I do want to say a special thank you to both Alex and Keith. Alex is my contact over at Detroit Speed, and he's been absolutely awesome to work with. Actually, he watched the channel for a while, so Alex, if you're watching this, I cannot thank you enough for everything you've done for me. And that goes as well for you, Keith. I really appreciate everything you've done. Keith is my contact over at Holley Performance, who kind of hooked all this stuff up too. And being to work with a company like Holley Performance that I've known for decades, since I was a child, and Detroit Speed, who makes like the best suspension components for resto mods and retrofitting old vehicles with modern suspension to be able to handle this kind of stuff. And all that stuff will come a little bit later, right before we paint it and stuff like that. And speaking of which, I actually get a chance to go up and meet the guys over at Detroit Speed and tour the facility and Gear FX, the people who are making me my rear end. And hopefully I'll get a chance to meet all these people at SEMA this year as well. But I want to say special thank you to you guys over at Holley Performance and Detroit Speed for making this become a reality. And my buddy Garrett, who runs American Muscle HD, he's the one that kind of put his neck out on the line for me to for them to trust me and stuff like that, you know. So Garrett, I really appreciate you on that aspect too. Being able to do this kind of stuff has been incredibly humbling, and to tackle such a big thing that was like I've wanted to do for so long. Obviously, we still have hella work to do, like still a bunch of stuff. I wish I could convey to you guys just how excited and ridiculous this is for me. This is the stuff that I've always wanted to do, and I cannot wait to do more stuff like this. And this is nothing that you couldn't do yourself. Like, this is all stuff that I would suggest that everyone who wants to do it, get it in their head that they can do it. It's not impossible. I don't even want to say that it's hard. It's just requires patience and time. And if you can dedicate both those things to a build project, I promise you can do something like this yourself. That's the whole purpose of me doing this in my garage by myself, to show you that, like, you don't need you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment just to do this. Like, don't get me wrong, you're gonna need some parts. You're gonna need some parts. It's not, that aspect of it isn't necessarily cheap, but it's not unobtainable either. And then obviously there's a couple other things that I haven't really gotten to yet. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna end the video on today, guys. I'm so happy. And thank you guys for tuning in and watching with me. In the next video, hopefully we'll get this thing started up.